Let's begin with that breaking news. The Justice Department just seconds ago released a number of new files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, CBS News has a team that's going to be combing through these documents. We want to get right to CBS News Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, we understand we literally just got these files just a couple of seconds ago. What are we looking for today?
Well, what we're looking for is any new information that really has been at the center of this entire back and forth going back to earlier this year when the Department of Justice and Attorney General Pam Bondi handed out files to some pro-Trump influencers. And it turned out that that initial batch of files was actually nothing new. That led to where we are now, President Trump being forced by Republicans in his own party and Democrats to sign a bill that requires this disclosure, and midnight tonight was the deadline. However, the second in command at the Department of Justice, Todd Blanche, said earlier today on another network that this is going to be the first batch of others and that the Department of Justice is still working on producing a lot of these files, partly because the Department of Justice says they need to continue to redact sensitive information about potential victims and potential identifying factors. If people think about social security numbers and other information that could be in police reports, in court records, but you see the slow scroll on the screen of what the members of the public and the media can all go look at now. We have dozens of people here at our bureau and across the network looking through this. Again, is there any new information about anyone who potentially worked or conspired with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Is there any new information about President Trump, as many Democrats have alleged? And simply, what new information could be in there about past investigations into Jeffrey Epstein in both Florida and New York that we simply just did not know yet, because the Department of Justice has had these files for years. They have never come to light in this way, in a searchable way that will be released in one, at least initial tranche. However, Democratic lawmakers have said they're not happy with this partial release because the bill requires some kind of full release that was due today, and it does not look like, at least according to the second command at the Justice Department, Todd Blanche, that that's going to happen in completion.
So, Jake, I want to lean back on what you said earlier. The Justice Department has the right to leave out documents that contain any kind of personal information like social security numbers, medical information. But how can we be sure that we're getting all the pertinent information? We just have to take the Justice Department's word for it, that they're releasing all the information, even if it could be incriminating to some people?
Well, that's the challenge here of how a Department of Justice that, at least in the words of President Trump's Chief of Staff, Susie Wild, whiffed on its initial rollout of what it was going to do about the Jeffrey Epstein files. Our audience will remember that memo put out by Kash Patel, Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino, who's since about to depart the FBI, and Attorney General Bondi, saying that they had no incriminating information, that they had done a complete review, and people were not satisfied. And we've seen members in the House of Representatives who passed and pushed for this bill already call into question, before we even got this document released just 5 or so minutes ago, about whether or not the Department of Justice could potentially alter any of these. There had been a push for the Department of Justice Office of the Inspector General to review all of these hundreds of thousands of pages of documents before they were released. It does not appear that any of that has happened. So for now, we're going to have to rely on what's new in there, and our CBS News team is going to do the best job that they can to piece together years of old information we've got earlier this year, and potentially anything new, to kind of cull through it and find out what is actually newsworthy and valuable and what has been redacted, if there are some kind of sensitive or unusual redactions that do not appear to be necessarily about a victim but could be about something else.
I'm just looking at the file there on our screen of what our team at CBS News has to go through, and the documents are really dense, and the process is dense. It's very, very tedious. Can you give us a little peek behind the curtain there at CBS News and walk us through how our team are going through these files? How many people are we talking about here? Is everybody in a one big conference room? How is it working?
We're all messaging, and we have been since earlier today when we found out that this document release was going to come out around 3 o'clock today. Obviously, it's around 4 o'clock on the East Coast. And what we're going to do is read through them physically, use artificial intelligence to try to find some keywords, potentially about victims or new law enforcement information. And then the hard part is simply just going through what we have known in the past, and again, what we've already reported on, communicating with each other about what potentially could be new, and piecing together what is still missing, because I think that's what the American people want to see going forward, is some kind of this information gap of what President Trump has said, which that there is no involvement from him in any of these criminal activities, and proof in any of these Department of Justice files. And simply, I think just for the broader country and world of this fascination with Jeffrey Epstein, is there any new information about his crimes and how they went about, he and Ghislaine Maxwell went about doing so in trafficking these women to different places where he was living, in moving money and women around, anything about his finances, all of that would certainly be of public interest. The challenge to do so is when you have hundreds of thousands of documents. The best way to do that is simply to go by hand at times and to make sure that we're getting things right, and also at the same time using technology to our advantage here. And there certainly will be more to come, and likely not just the hours to come, but likely days, because there was going to be more releases, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche has said, and there are going to be more times where we're going to need to, and the public will need to, go through these documents over and over again if there's something new, to make sure that A, we're getting the complete context of these documents, where are they from, and were they public before, and are they new and newsworthy.
It is a monumental task, and also the Friday before Christmas week. Thank you to you and your team for taking on this huge job right now, Jake. All right, well, the Epstein files encompass records from several different sources. They include DOJ and grand jury testimony records, documents released as part of a congressional investigation into Epstein records, subpoenaed by the DOJ and the Epstein estate itself, dozens of civil suits related to Jeffrey Epstein and his estate, his co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell, the U.S. government and the bank of J.P. Morgan, and finally, the Treasury's Department has its own unreleased files showing how Epstein made his money. Let's bring in CBS News senior White House reporter Jennifer Jacobs. Jennifer, what are you hearing from the White House on the release of these files just a few minutes ago?
We have not heard very much from them yet. They just came out. What we've been focused on here at the White House is this new announcement from the pharmaceutical companies. We will get you reaction from the White House, but it just isn't out yet. But 9 pharmaceutical companies today said that they have agreed to deals with the Trump administration to lower the cost of some medicines for people who are on Medicaid. That's the government insurance program for low-income people. The president today said that he asked 17 big pharmaceutical companies to lower some of their drug prices. He said 14 have now agreed to. That's 3 who have not. He talked about how Americans often pay far more money for the exact same medications as people who live in other high-income developed nations pay. And so the president has been pushing to get these companies to lower the prices. He did say that he had an idea that occurred to him as he stood there talking to us just minutes ago. He said he also wants to get the health insurance companies to start lowering prices. He said he thinks he can get them to lower prices by 50, 60, 70%. And he said he's going to try to bring in those insurance executives in the next few days while he's down in Florida for the holidays or here at the White House. But he wants to get them in before next week or before the mid-January, early January, to talk to them about lowering prices. So those are the big news that we're focused on here, but the Epstein news is also big. It's just breaking as we speak.
Right. All right. We're going to check in with you again if the White House has any kind of response to release of the Epstein files. Jennifer Jacobs, thank you so much.